The big one out of 2024, topping the charts and well worth it, well deserved, well earned, happens to be our guest's favorite song. The unveiled minutes. Look at the time, 29 minutes before we get to 3 o'clock. Let's do it like we do every Sunday afternoon.
Today, we're a fly on the wall in the life of
Theodora Madzinga, ladies and gentlemen. I won't waste time with trying to give you a detailed introduction because she's an all-round phenomenal woman. Suffice it to say that I met Theo years ago. Do you remember what year that was?
I think 2013. Maybe
it could have been, but it was at the Christian Counseling Center. We were both enrolled for a course called Boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you my perception of you at that time.
Jeez.
You were very much your issue. You know, people become their issues.
I was in my feels.
Yeah, you were in your feels. You were Mrs. My Wife. You but we still connected on some level.
Yeah.
I just want to say this, and I hope you take it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I saw through you at that time. I could see that you were going through a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think you were really trying to mask it all. Do this course and it's going to solve my issues. And I could have. You gave me this. I wanted to pull you back and say, hey, hang on, what's going on? Yeah. But we were not that close. That was our first time meeting. Yeah, we were not close. But we did connect. We would talk in the class. Mm-hmm. But it was also a very... the Christian Counseling Center has an aura about it. So, and you listen to things of the spirit and you dig deep down, and we're really learning about these boundaries. But suffice it to say, it was great meeting you in that way. Mm-hmm. I then met you a few years later. Mm-hmm. We're now in the circles, in the industry, connected to people through your church circles, my church circles, and this work. I then met you as a financial literacy trainer.
Yep.
Something you do extraordinarily well, and I enjoyed those sessions. I've been in a couple of them. You're invited to events. You do them so well. And I also then met Theo, the caterer.
Yeah. I've come and served Star FM.
Yes. You've catered at one of our events. Oh, one of the most memorable caterers. At the many events that we've had here, you cook so well. You put your heart into it, and I think I'm the one who engaged you at that time. And I was reading the Riot Act and got it to you.
I know.
So you're a woman of many talents. I celebrate you. I welcome you to Fly on the Wall.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So I did say that I don't have an introduction that would serve you well because you tell your story better.
Yeah.
Best. You tell it best.
Okay.
Yeah. My first question was going to be, what do you mean being too religious? What do you mean?
Okay.
But let's start from who you say you are.
Okay. Thank you very much, Iyati. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for listening in. It's my pleasure to be here. You should see me grinning. I can't wipe the grin off my face. So my name is Theodora Madzinga, though officially some of you know me as Theodora Chinembiri. I'm transitioning from my married name Chinembiri to my maiden name Madzinga. I'm a mother of four very beautiful kids, 23, 19, 16 and 13, 2 girls and 2 boys. I really love being a mother. Then, as she said already, I'm a financial literacy educator. I've trained hundreds. I wish I could say hundreds of thousands, but let me just say thousands of Zimbabweans in financial literacy education. I run a catering business as well as baking. I know I've done a lot of cakes for some of you.
Oh, yes, and cakes.
Yes, and I did your 40th cake because we are twinnies. We are both 45. I love my age. I have no problem saying I'm a 45-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And as she said, I got married when I was 20, very young. I will reflect on that in terms of religion. And I got divorced when I turned 40, so I was married for 19 years, and the best thing ever that I came out with are my 4 kids. And I think some of the things I do come through, but I do a whole lot of things. I speak a lot as well. I think I have officiated on countless bridal showers, baby welcomes, parties, informal ladies meetings, church events, countless. Yeah.
What do you mean being too religious?
Okay, so for me to explain that in my context, I have to backtrack a little bit. It also helps for people to know me better. I was born the third girl in a family of 7. We are 6 girls and 1 boy. We were born into a very religious family, African traditional religion. It's an apostolic sect, and all. And being a middle child and being in a very strict environment, it was very legalistic. I easily remember how many years ago I went to Singapore and I bought my father a lovely umbrella which was black. It would open up so big, but you could fold it until it was very small. And I was very proud of that purchase, only for him to reject it because it was black. So as we have progressed over time, I know they've become better. I actually relate well with people in that church, and they've become more tolerant and more lenient and understanding. But back when we were children in that church, so many rules and regulations. So that kind of set up my foundation. And one of the teachings that had the most profound effect on me was how they vividly taught that God is a God. I'll have to say it in Shona so that you really understand. They'll teach us kuti Mwari munhu ane zishamu rakakura rekuti no matter how far you run, he can just, throw it at you and bring you back. So my picture of God, even into my adult years, was of a God holding a very long rod that he would use to pull me back, to hit me, to inflict pain on me when I had done wrong. So I then grew up developing a very high sense of right and wrong. I always wanted to check myself. Am I doing things right? Am I sitting properly? Am I wearing the right things? Am I speaking well?
Being a September baby doesn't help. We Virgos are so hard on ourselves.
And I became a perfectionist
in
the process, and I became so hard and fast. And the good thing then was that, I don't know if you're aware of it, but Mapostori are very loyal and loving. And we still relate well with, it's because it's my father's church. But it's then set me up in that regard. And within that environment, growing up kumastones kwamachipisa, it was actually an achievement to get married. So we were raised and groomed to become good wives, to become which is why I then got married very early at 20. At only 20 years of age, I signed my marriage certificate, and I thought I was doing very well. But I want to thank my dad very much. Shout out to my father. I love him very much. The best thing he did for all 7 of us was to send us to Group A schools for high school. So I then went to a Group A school where there was SU. And now they're teaching a different God and a different Jesus. And they're saying Jesus is my friend. Meanwhile, I grew up knowing, no, he's got a big rod and he's always out to get me. So that experience of getting to SU and then going to university and joining Christian Union, KUSIU, that then started introducing me to a different kind of religion. But by then I was already very legalistic, high sense of right and wrong, very subservient, and I learned to listen to authorities. My father being a traditional African man, we were 6 girls. All of us would rush and kneel before him. Then he says, "Non ruguda uyu." So his word was law. It's unlike our children today that we allow to question what we tell them. I allow my kids to say, "But why, mom? Why are you saying we should go there or do this?" When we grew up, we're not allowed to say, "But why are you forcing me to go to church? I don't want to go. Why are we worshiping under a tree? Why are we still sitting under the tree when it's raining? I'm cold, I'm hungry, I want to go back home." We couldn't say those things. So I want to give you a good example of why I became so religious. So one time, my sisters and I, Takafuriran, wanted to rebel against our father sending us Kumushapa holiday. So it was the December holiday. We refused to go. Do you know what he did? On 25 December, Christmas Day, I remember 3 a.m., he knocked on our bedroom door and he said, Vaskana mkaitiende kumusha. Musa 25. We were single file going kumbare tikanokwira bhazi tikaenda kumusha. So, you know, that kind of conditions you and programs you into being obedient. You then start thinking we should have agreed to come 2 weeks ago rather than traveling on Christmas Day. So imagine with that background, I then get married when I'm 20. And I'm hearing people as they're talking, whether pa maroro or pa bridal shower and or the wedding, and they're saying, uterere murume, udai. So I then knew I have to say yes. I then got born again into the Pentecostal system when I was at NAST. So I turned 20. I'm at NAST in my second year at university, and then I get married. So all these things happened at once. Then I also got born again. So you can imagine trying to be a daughter-in-law, trying to be a good university student, trying to be a good child back at home in my family. I then, unfortunately, in quotes, got into a church that was also very legalistic in nature. Quite a lot of rules, do's and don'ts. And it was easy for me to get into the system because I'm coming from a highly legalistic background as well. So right now people ask me, why did you agree to this or that? And I tell them, as long as we program and condition, we socially condition our children to never ask why, to never question anything we tell them, we are setting them up for future failure in society because they are so used to saying yes. You just say, the parent says everyone jump and the child says how high.
Interesting. I just want to rush you through because in the interest of time, from that background of, you know, being legalistic and taking everything as law from up above, authority or speaks,
what they say runs.
How has your relationship transitioned with your father, who is your living parent? What is your relationship now, particularly after going through a divorce?
Okay, the good thing then, like I said, my father is very loving. We are very tight. We are very good as a family. So I won't even spend much time on that because we are solid. And in his old age, he says things like, so he's very tolerant. As he's grown older, he's sort of melted, and you know, we can talk about anything with him. But in the interest of time, let me quickly rush. So in the Pentecostal system, because I was already very gifted, I remember when I was 12 years old doing a poem in English in front of a conference in Apostoli, more than 10,000, and I was number one.
I like that. A lot of people, when people in our 40s, like myself, yourself, and my friend Gamu, whom I know is listening, when we share things like that, sometimes it's taken as humor. People don't understand what it means in the 80s
exactly
and 90s to be a child and stand up and from a certain children of a certain background,
yes,
and eloquently articulate anything in English.
Yes.
It was a rite of passage.
Yes, so that kind of then gave me the glimpse that, you know, I can stand before a crowd, I can speak. So I got into the Pentecostal system, and within 3 years of marriage, we were leaders. And by the time...
This means you were 23, 24.
Yes, I was leading a care group of ladies like Kuchina Kuruwadzano. And by the time I was 30, 31, 32, I was leading in more than 10 departments in the church. I remember I'd lead prayer, ushers, counseling. I was the head interpreter. I was leading in the ladies' ministry. I was doing all sorts of things in the church. Then guess what happened? So that's the biggest thing that shaped my religious life. Unfortunately, my then husband committed sexual sin, and we were asked to stand before the church whilst he confessed. This was 2 different services, a total of 800 people, and we were not given any prior counseling. It was like he confessed today, and then the pastor said, let me go sleep on it. The following morning, he called us and said, you're standing up in church on Sunday. Both of you, you're confessing. I wish I could go back and refuse to stand with him, because why did I have to do that together together with him when I had not sinned. I was a young mom who was nursing. My last born was 3 months old. I have 4 kids. I am wanting to work on things and love this man who's betrayed me this way. Then you ask me to stand in front of a church where I'm leading more than 10 departments. I'm a full-time church worker, and people actually relate to me in that regard as a full-time church worker. And we stood there. He was given the mic. He confessed. Then pastor announced, Maishnembiri is no longer leading or working for the church. She needs to focus on a marriage. I felt humiliated. I felt, so that was the biggest single religious act that changed my whole life. And I believe it's what brought me here. It's a long story, but then after some years, I had a nervous breakdown. I couldn't handle it. People were openly rejecting me, and I struggled to understand why I had to be punished together with him. And I had been promised that when we do that, we kill the sexual spirit, so he would stop doing it. But it didn't stop, so I didn't know why I had to pay the price. And then 6 years later, which was our 19th year, I then totally rebelled against the system, and I left church. I actually made a post on Facebook, and I said, I have decided not to go to church anymore. I don't want this God. I don't want religion. And I stayed home for 2 years.
I don't want this God. I don't want religion.
Yes.
Can we just go a little deeper on that?
This religion that had me in church from Monday to Sunday. I was already a full-time church worker, so my 8 to 5 job is in the church. Then evenings, I'm doing Bible schools on Monday. Tuesday, it's midweek prayer. Wednesday, we do go home at 5 and we do home group in our homes. Thursday, we are back, it's Bible school. Friday, there's departmental meetings, church board meetings. Saturday, I'm hosting a kitchen party in my home for a church member, or we are having a ladies meeting at church. I'm doing the deco, I'm doing the catering. Sunday, we go to church as early as 7 a.m. and if there's second service and evening service, we'll go back home at 9 p.m. So there wasn't any time for me to focus on my then husband and family because I was church. So imagine when you've given yourself so much to the church that you get into the church at 7:30 a.m. and you only leave at 8:39 p.m. when you finish Bible school in the evening. And then one day you stand me up on the same pulpit and you say she can't work for us because her husband committed adultery. That's what broke me.
Would you say you were too religious or too churchy?
Doesn't it mean the same thing? I was very pious, I was very subservient. Anything they said, for me, that's what I did. And I'll also mention something. We need to understand that our churching or our religious activity as a Zimbabwean cultural, social setting, we are already a people who I find us to be very punitive in nature.
True.
We are high on punishment and rewards.
Yeah.
So, for example, if we take church out of it, we have parents who say a child comes home late at 6 p.m. They say, go back where you came. We have an aunt, anotindatukwa nemzukuru wangu, andifenda katsika pamba pake negumbo rangu. So, I find God to be a redemptive God who reconciles, who says, yes, you've done wrong, come back to me. But I find church saying, oh, you've done wrong, let's punish you. Let's stop you from being a leader. Let's cut you off. Some churches even tell you to go back home.
For what?
Because you've done wrong. We once were in a... Exactly. So like I said, 30 minutes is not enough. But we were once in a service where my then husband was called up front. He was given a prophecy. God says he's going to kill you if you don't change and put your house in order. And right now walk out and never come back until you've put your house in order. And there is me, his wife, watching my then husband walking out. And I'm waiting to go to the pastor's lounge and serve these same people the food that I've cooked for them in my home. And it was just all confusing. That's why I say when I turned 40, people say a woman when she turns 40, there's something that happens.
True.
They think we just rebel and become too independent for nothing. But I think there's an opening and awakening and enlightenment that happens. And you realize, no, this is not right. This is not God.
Absolutely.
Is it really God?
Somebody comes through on WhatsApp and says, this Theodora has some bitterness. It's not related to religion at all.
Okay, I have had people who dismiss what I say because they say you are bitter. Can I mention something? One thing that I find our Christian community not ready to do is to talk about these things. Over the years, I would cry out, I would seek audience and mention why 1, 2, 3 was happening. Please explain this to me. But I will say it point blank. Generally, people don't want or allow Christians within their church to speak out negatively. We quickly give an audience if someone has a testimony, but when they say, I was hurt, I was wounded, I don't understand why this happened, we come up with excuses. So people have boxed me over the years. They've said I'm bitter. They've said I talk too much. I've been told that I'm too gifted. I'm too sharp. I need to tone down. They've said all sorts of things. But guess what? There are people out there, it's a fact we need to accept in the Christian society. There are people out there that have been hurt and wounded in the name of Christianity, in the name of religion. And until and unless we are willing to sit down and talk about it and really discuss, like you said, separate what is religion, what is being too pious, what is devotion, what is commitment, what does it mean being a son in the house, what is loyalty in the house of God, how do we correctly show each other Christianity, what does it mean for me to be a Christian? How do I practice being a Christian day to day? Am I a Christian only in the house of God when I'm serving, or I'm also a Christian kumarai in my community? If you come where I live and you speak to my neighbor and you say, "Ndopambapa Auntie Theo Erap," what will they say of me? Until Christians are willing to sit down and discuss that out of doctrinal teachings and issues, I feel like we will always shove down anyone who speaks out and box them and say she's too bitter, she's this.
Absolutely.
But I know that between God and myself, my heart is clean, my heart is pure, I hold no bitterness. I actually did go back to church.
Before we move on to how you've gone back to the church, our time, 7 minutes before we get to 3 o'clock. I can't believe how fast it's racing against us.
Yes.
But thank you so much. I see all the messages on WhatsApp. I'm talking to Theodora Madzinga. She's sharing how being too religious almost cost her everything. She lost her marriage after 19 years. She says she has moved away from the bitterness. She was bitter in the beginning at the breakdown of her marriage, but she's co-parenting very well with her former husband, and she has gone back to the church. Tell us where you are now.
Okay, so I obviously I would want to mention names, but I'm a very proud son in my church. I go to Faith Ministries Borodo Community Church. My pastors are Matthew and Priscilla Wazara. I have a very good relationship with them. I serve very well. I love God. The difference is the reason why I now go to church. I no longer go to church to get validation of my giftings or who I am. I go to church to fellowship with others as we praise and worship God. So that's what changed. Before, my being religious was an act. Even if fire was burning at home and our relationship wasn't good at home, I would still show up and serve because I'd been given a rule that a leader leaves their issues by the door and they come and serve people. We were shelving things, not dealing with issues, as long as we went outside and we smiled and were able to serve. That's where religion comes. Many people are putting on a show. They are afraid, or they are keeping up appearances, or maybe they have problems when they already hold a certain title and you're afraid to let people know the kind of stuff you're going through. So that's where I say I was too religious. I was acting. I was a performer. I was following rules and procedures rather than checking my heart connection with God. So now I have a direct line to God, no middleman. I know God for myself. I read the word for myself, and I avoid extremes.
Powerful. So many people are clamoring that you come back next week, that we needed an hour with you, but we only have these 30 minutes, of which 5 are left.
I know.
And kuona watorwa, ndakutorirwa, neman we faith on trial. Tell us about your co-parenting relationship now with your former husband.
Okay, we have a very good relationship. I think it helps that our children are older. Like I said, the youngest is turning 14, so they can speak for themselves, and they know with both of us, they are allowed to freely express themselves and to freely speak. We do not force them to do anything they don't want to do. For example, I would rather go to church by myself than force my children to come with me. So they enjoy our homes equally. either mom's home or dad's home during the holiday. We never have to sit down and thrash out anything, but through the children, when they select where they want to be, we allow them. So that's going great for me, and I'm much happier that way. I would rather be unmarried and co-parenting happily like we are doing now than look all pious and religious and be the great performer I was while suffering with a very unhappy marriage. And I actually believe he's also happier with someone else than with me, which is good.
What have you learned about yourself through all this?
So through all this, what I've learned is that I'm a person first and foremost. And one thing that I know is that God loves me. So it doesn't matter what people say or what people think, but I need to know that God loves me, which is why I said I don't go to church to get validation from people. So even if I just sit and do nothing the whole year, opposed to back when I was serving on a daily basis, as long as I have the conviction in my heart that God loves me as an individual, He loves me whether I'm a divorcee or married, whether I have children or I don't have children. He loves me when I'm going in and when I'm coming out, when I'm rising up, when I'm sitting. That is what has defined who I am today. I'm just a woman that is loved by God.
Have you tried dating again since you...
Yes, I have. I wish I had time. I'll then tell you how being religious as well also affected me in these 5 years when I dated. I had one serious relationship and I was with the guy for 3 years, and unfortunately it didn't work out because
Is it Mr. S, the one you just...
No, that's when you'll have to buy the book and find out. But that also didn't work out because I had to grieve over the marriage to find who I am. I share it in 5 years a divorcee, and religion plays a big part in it as well.
You've also gone on to start what you call Courageous Christian Conversations.
Yes.
Triple C.
Yes.
Is the pun intended?
Yeah, no pun intended. Yes, so the reason why I started the Triple C Conversations and I post them on Facebook is because over years of trying to alert those that had a chance to do something in my life that I'm having these problems, I'm struggling with this rule or this law, and nobody was willing to sit down with me. I then realized I was suffocating inside and I was almost exploding. One time I almost committed suicide because I felt worthless, I felt rejected, I felt like I was a nobody. But the idea came to me to start writing. When I write, you don't argue with me. I write on my own. Then I go and post it on Facebook. So Courageous Christian Conversations, I discuss things that people don't like to talk about. Already someone puts a wall and says you are bitter. So they dismiss me and they don't want to listen to me. So rather than engage you in a discussion, I will write about it, read the article. If you get angry on your own. So I talk about Christian issues that I believe are important for any Christian leader who wants to know what us, the flock, go through. Those who want to learn have learned. Over the years, I've met many thousands of people that have reached out and said, thank you for writing the articles. Even if they don't agree with what I write, it's a conversation starter. It gives them something to talk about.
Fantastic. So many women connecting with what you're talking about. They would like to connect with you. Do you help women outside of a platform like radio? When is the book coming out? Theo, give us more. How can we connect?
As you mentioned, the Harare Christian Counseling Center has been very instrumental in helping me. I trained for 3 years as a Christian counselor, so I do interact with women almost on a daily basis. I'm there on Facebook and even through WhatsApp. I'm always available. So yes, and I will continue telling my story, and I will never be stopped by those who put whatever brick wall they want. I will keep telling my story.
Is the book out yet?
The book is coming out hopefully by April. I'm just finishing it up, but definitely it's on the way out. It's almost done.
Theodora Madzinga, 5 years, a divorcee, a woman who says being too religious at a young age almost cost her everything. Married for 19 years, found herself at the age of 40, and the story continues. Your parting shot.
I just want to encourage Christians out there, do it for God, have a relationship with God, read the Bible for yourself, never take what any man or woman says. And I'll quickly end with this. I love Ecclesiastes 7 verse 16 to 18. I'll read it in 2 versions, then I finish in 30 seconds. New